Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Glad you could join me here today on the first of two Cabral House Calls. Tomorrow, of course, we'll be answering more of your questions, but today we are going through the first of our weekend Cabral House Calls, which is where I answer our community's questions each and every weekend. Something that I love doing. I've been doing now for over 4 years. I think 4.5 years or so. We're about that mark right now. We had one of our IHP members email in saying that we've answered about 3,000 questions. So we're going to find out exactly how many questions we have answered. We're going back all the way to the first episode. We're going to check those out. So thank you, Kim Popovich, for being kind enough to actually go back and check out all of the previous Cabral House Calls, add them up, saying that on average we answer about 6 house calls per day. Thank you, Kim, for figuring that out. And that is about 12, of course, per week. And I'm pretty good with that simple math right there. So, really nice for Kim to have done that. And so I just want to give a shout out to our IHP community and to Kim for going back and figuring out how many house calls we have answered. I'm going to do a double check with my team, see what that looks like. But again, wanted to thank Kim Popovich for that. All right. Well, this is what we do every single weekend. So if you're a new listener, I am glad that you're here with us. I know we've had a lot of new listeners over the past 90 days or so coming through because of what I've been speaking about a lot on the particular virus. Now, the issue, of course, that many of you know is that I have been predominantly censored on YouTube. I've definitely been censored on Instagram to the point where less than 1% of my Instagram followers, the community there, actually even get to see my posts. So if you want to see my daily posts, and we'll be doing a lot more, not just the podcast, but I'll actually be doing some videos. We'll be putting up some of my favorite quotes, all those different things on a daily basis. Definitely tune back in and just hit the notification so you're actually notified when I do post something. Regardless, either way, every single day we're posting a podcast at stephencabral.com/podcast, and it gets pushed out to all of your favorite MP3 podcast-based players. Okay, so if you're new to the show, we answer all of our community's questions here each and every weekend on wellness, weight loss, anti-aging, mindset, you name it. We try to tackle that topic. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate all of your reviews you've left on the Rain Barrel Effect book and for the Cabral Concept podcast. That means a lot. I literally read every single one. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. The first question we're going to get to today is from Carly. Carly says, "Hello, Dr. Cabral. I've been suffering from a strange symptom for about 8 years. Now that as a nutritionist and IHP, have not been able to get to the root cause. Now that I am a nutritionist and IHP, I have not been able to get the root cause. I often have spasms in what feels like my vagus nerve or diaphragm. It is usually just one jolt-like spasm that comes on suddenly and out of nowhere, and sometimes takes my breath away. It leaves me feeling slightly panicked, as it is hard to determine if it's a heart palpitation or muscular spasm as described. Any ideas about what this could be? Thank you so much in advance." All right. Thank you, Carly, for writing in. Thank you for being an IHP. We appreciate you. And what I would say is this. Of course, I have to give my little disclaimer, but I hope that everyone knows that on any podcast and anything that we're just doing virtually, we are not diagnosing, we're not curing, we are not treating disease. What I'm trying to do on this show and all my other shows is share with you just my experience of being in this great industry for 20 years, working and overseeing over 250,000 client appointments, and being fortunate enough to help many, many people overcome whatever issues they may have been dealing with. So what I would say is this, is that you're feeling a type of spasm, you're saying around your diaphragm area. So if people kind of want to think where the diaphragm is, it's more like a balloon that we look at, and it's not just static. It's not basically two-dimensional. It can actually expand and contract. We're looking at right below and around the ribs. So because there's this great thing, I did an interview with Dr. Belisa. You can definitely check that out on breathing techniques. But what a lot of people don't do is they actually, Carly, I think you're on the right track. A lot of people are locked up. So think about this. Think about how many people you know that get headaches and migraines. Then think of how many people that you know have digestive-based issues. Then think of how many people that you know that have psoriasis or other issues. A lot of people hold their stress in different areas of their body. So when some people get stressed, they hold it in their neck and shoulders, right? And some people, when they get stressed, they hold it in their gut. And I could just go on and on. Of course, some people feel stiff and some people get brain fog. But Carly, maybe for many years, you've been dealing with a contracted and I would say locked up, not just vagus nerve, but vagal nerve tone. That's what we refer to it as. And you can check out my podcast. And Carly, this would be my next recommendation, is that you check out my podcast on the polyvagal nerve theory. So please check that out next. You can just go to stevencabral.com/podcast and type in polyvagal nerve theory. It's based on much work that I've studied over the years. And one of those main people that I just started getting into not too long ago that actually kind of pulled things together was Dr. Stephen Porges. So you can check that out, and that will help you to basically unwind, to decouple that stress, which so many of us, it's attached to or gets locked into the fascia, the actual body of tissue that connects all the different types of muscle groups and surrounds the muscle. It's why oftentimes we feel locked up, even with all the foam rolling and stretching and massage, is that we can continue to do that, but if we don't release the tension at a nervous system level, well, that it can continue. So check that out. And then, of course, check out to see if you have AFib and arrhythmia, or check out as well your electrolyte balance. And typically that means a shortage of magnesium for many, many people. But again, I can't tell you that for sure. All right, a really good one, I'm sure you've already run this, is a minerals and metals test. All right, Yvonne's up next. And again, if I name a lab, then it's directed to equilibriumnutrition.com. That's where we have all of our basically open source labs that we can ship out directly to you. Okay, Yvonne's up next. As we age, are we doomed to get illness, or is there some way that we can maintain and improve our immunity to be stronger as we were when we were younger? I'm pretty sure that I've already answered this question. I know for sure that I've answered this question. Interesting. Let me see here. Okay, so again, sometimes when you've been answering this many questions for this long, I feel like this question already came in. But you know what, Yvonne, because I actually believe that I said this just a couple weeks ago, so you may have re-put it in. So here's the thing. Let me just give a quick aside. The questions take about 8 weeks to answer on the weekend house calls. So that's just because there's a big queue built up. So essentially, if you write in a question, it will be answered in about 8 weeks. And of course, if you want faster answers to your questions, you're welcome to leave that question at cabralsupportgroup.com. So I think this is already written in, but here's what I said, is that I'm going to do a podcast on basically how to stay healthy as we age. And every podcast is about that. But Yvonne, it comes down to this. It comes down to the rain barrel effect. So how well are you doing with your diet, your exercise, your stress reduction, your toxin removal, your rest, your emotional balance, your supplement protocols, and your success mindset? So the nice thing is this, is that since it is a 8-part formula that I wrote about in the rain barrel effect, that you don't have to get them all perfect. What you want to do is be about 80 to 90% of each, because the thing about aging is how we turn our cells on and off. So basically talking the language of our cells, which is essentially epigenetics. We have the ability to quiet dis-ease of the body or turn it on. That's why you see people move in and out of remission on autoimmune-based issues or gut-based issues or whatever it might be, based on the lifestyle that they're living and the protocols that they've done. So we're certainly not destined to get illnesses. The best way that I've tried to share this with people is that there are pockets of people all over the world that live essentially disease-free as they age. And we refer to these as more of the blue zones. Now, Can you get aches and pains in your joints? Can you go through graying of the hair loss? Can you go through a little less energy, less recovery after workouts? Yes. And that is part of the aging process. That's part of essentially entropy of the body. But you can slow that down dramatically. And I have people that I personally work with in my practice that are role models to me. They're in their late 60s, 70s, early 80s. Now, I have people in my practice much older, but they are in tip-top shape. They have cleaned up their body. They've emptied that rain barrel, and they are skiing. They're playing tennis. They are working out 4 or 5 times a week. They're coaching others. They're consulting. They sit on boards of all sorts of different things. They have more energy than their kids to play with their grandkids. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, Yvonne, well, I guess it's not that short of an answer anymore. The short answer is no, you are not destined to those things. But here's the thing. I mean, I follow what's called the daily foundational protocol. As you're getting older, I definitely recommend level 3 of that. The immunity protocol is vitamin C, it's vitamin D, and it's zinc, which is crucial as you get older. And then I have other things that I recommend too as you're getting older. But if you're not doing those, then yes, the advanced collagen is amazing, those types of things. But then, you can start to get into other things. But I don't want people to ask me about resveratrol and ubiquinol and all those great things if they're not doing it, something like the daily foundation protocol level 3, plus then the alkalizing vitamin C, the vitamin D, and the zinc, and then maybe the advanced collagen support. And then you can start getting into things like the nicotinamide riboside, the transresveratrol, the quercetin. Okay, those are great. But there's no way that those come before all of your B vitamins, all of your vitamin C, all of that. Not by a long shot. Okay. Yvonne, hopefully that was helpful. I'll talk more, of course, in the future. Yvonne has a second question. Do you have a recommended diet of foods to eat or not eat for a Pitta Kapha who has type 2 diabetes, was able to reverse with keto, but now has trouble keeping blood sugar levels down when going off keto? Yeah, that's the problem with keto, is that you become so, what's the best word to say it? So unable to deal with carbohydrates for a lot of people when you start to get back on it. I mean, when you get off keto and you start to add carbs back in your diet. What I would look into, again, I'm not giving you recommendations for type 2 diabetes. I'm giving you baseline recommendations, foundational-based protocols. So my highest recommendation is to look at the Fatlocity-based protocol. You can just go to equilibriumnutrition.com/Fatlocity. Again, not a treatment, not a cure. What we are doing is, again, getting that body balanced, helping the Kapha body type lose that weight. And also, again, it's based on 25 clinical research studies. That's how that was formulated. The nutrition plan eases carbs back into the diet. I think you'll find it very helpful. And that's what I would recommend. But then also, just go to stephencabral.com/podcast. At the very top, scroll through the images, click on the Ayurveda podcasts, and then click on the one that's on diet for each body type. And then you'll learn about how to have predominantly veggies for the Kapha body type, and then work in some berries, and then you'll continue to work in starches as the body becomes more acclimated, right? That's part of the Fatlocity protocol as well. But again, the protocols that I give are very succinct, but the podcasts do. I mean, they talk about all of these things. I don't hold anything back. I don't save information, right? I just, with my courses and things like that, I try to make them just real world user friendly, like super succinct. Okay. Beth is up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I've been treating Lyme disease, Bartonella babesia, CIRS, for around 8 years now. Some have been treated longer than others, depending on how I was diagnosed. I'm an otherwise healthy individual, mid-20s. I've heard you mention in your show that chronic Lyme symptoms are often the result of residual imbalances rather than there still being an active infection. I would like to believe that this is the case, but find that I still have very strong Herxheimer reactions when I start new treatment protocols or change my dosage. I'm currently treating with herbal tinctures and homeopathics, but took antibiotics for about 3 years. My doctor says this means that I still have active infections, but there is reason for me to believe otherwise, even with the intense Herxheimer reactions? ? Look forward to your response. Warmly, Beth. Okay, well, let me see if I can help you with this. So the issue is this. I mean, you can pretty much test to see if you have an active infection for Lyme, the bacteria that causes Lyme. And I did a bunch of podcasts, so if anybody wants to check this out, you can just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts. I will stop saying that page, but that's where all the podcasts are. And you can go back. I just have a couple right here, so let me see if I can find them. My tick bite and Lyme protocol, episode 1572. There's another one of the symptoms of Lyme. That's 1586. So you can check those out for sure. If anybody, well, let me break this down by steps. If you were on antibiotics for 3 years, and I'm assuming it was something like doxycycline that's been proven to help kill this particular bacteria, it would be hard for me to imagine that you still have the particular parasite or bacteria in your body that causes, again, quote unquote, Lyme disease, because it's causing the symptoms that we call Lyme disease. I hope that most people know that Lyme got its name from the city. I believe this is correct. I believe I looked back to the origins of this in Lyme, Connecticut. I'm pretty sure that's correct. So, okay. And Connecticut is like literally an hour and a half, well, probably more than that, a couple hours away from where we are here. So here's what I want you to know. When you have taken that much antibiotics, and I know, again, like I've taken over 3,000 capsules of amoxicillin. I wish I did not have that monogram, on me of what it does to your gut and your gut function. But keep in mind, if you have massive intestinal permeability, you're going to be sensitive to almost everything. And the reason is that when you eat, you're causing an inflammatory cascade event every single time. And that's because even healthy foods are just permeating into your bloodstream, and then it's causing a wild reaction from your immune system. Everything from secretory IgA, IgE, IgM, and IgG. And there are more, right? Those aren't the only ones. This then, typically over a chronic period of time, leads to what's called a Th2 immune imbalance. Okay? Well, a Th2 immune imbalance then leads to chronic inflammation. So those people, I was one of them. I still trend in that direction, even though I'm healthy right now, but there are trends, and that goes back to Yvonne's question with kind of your genetics, that you just get inflamed easily. You're more of a sensitive body type, and that can happen. So here's the thing. You also said that you have CIRS, which, again, if people are kind of looking for whatever that means, it means chronic inflammatory response syndrome. It can have to do with mold. It can have to do with intestinal permeability. So, Beth, I don't know exactly, right, what's going on. I'll tell you right now, I did a podcast. If I could only fix 2 things, I told people, if I could only fix 2, that would help the vast majority of the world get well. It would be intestinal permeability or gut-based dysfunction. And that has to do with 4 things: parasites, H. pylori, candida overgrowth, and bacterial overgrowth. Okay, it's one of those 4 typically. And then the intestinal permeability that comes along with it. Okay. And the other part is deep levels of stress, emotional stress, and anxiety, which just weaken people's immune system and cause chronic inflammation. If I could just work on 2 things with every individual, it would be those. So, that's essentially what I do, and we run those labs. You can do that with a starter kit. So, Beth, my highest recommendation is to run the organic acids test. We call it the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. Then I would run, which is part of the starter kit, the minerals and metals test. My third lab for you would be a bacteria and parasite stool test, and then I would run a food sensitivity test. Of course, I would do the whole Big 5 plus the stool if you can do it. The Big 5 is without a doubt the best way to learn about your health, like hands down. There's nothing that comes close to it. I run a Big 5 every single year, and then I do follow-up labs about 4 months after that if I need to tweak anything in my own program. So that's what I would do. Again, you're going to have Herxheimer reactions because you're more prone to inflammation. You're most likely, again, dealing with some of the things that I spoke about. Again, it's not a diagnosis, but for sure, I've seen many people like you, Beth, in my practice, and that's where I would lead myself to believe first. But again, I would lab test, and then I would know. Hopefully that helps, Beth. And again, we're happy to help you. You can run that through equilibriumnutrition.com. And our amazing health coach team is going to get you the answers that you need. All right. Heather's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on L-Carnitine. I hear it is good for weight loss, but I have also read some information that it makes me wonder if it's safe to take. I have a very slow metabolism, and despite regular exercise and reasonable diet, my weight will not budge. I'm trying to find things that will help me finally get the weight off. I really value your perspective and would love to know what you think. Many thanks, Heather. Heather, thank you for the trust. Always appreciate that, of course. And what I would say is this. I have no problem with L-Carnitine. I think L-Carnitine is a nice little nutrient, no doubt about it. Well, here's the thing. I never use it, as a starting point in any of my foundational protocols. I can't remember a time that I've ever given anybody L-Carnitine during their first 12 to 16 weeks, because we need to work on what else is going on. And if we're talking about weight loss, we're talking about stress hormones, sex hormones, blood sugar dysregulation, sleep issues, and yeah, that's about it. Get moving the body. So super important that we look at that. Look, Heather, if there's, again, I can't recommend this enough based on 25 clinical studies. If you go to equilibriumnutrition.com/fatlocity, I hardly ever talk about it. I've been using this methodology for a good 20 years. I know that it works. The nutrition plan alone works. You add in the Fatlocity formula, and now you're getting that to the highest level. Now, would I recommend, Heather, you lab test first? Of course, 100%. I'd recommend the starter kit, plus I'd recommend the stress hormones, mood, and metabolism test. No doubt about it, those are the three that I would do for weight loss. Absolutely. Like 100 out of 100 times. That's what I'm recommending. Because then I get to look, hey, is it estrogen dominance? Is it high cortisol? Is it low vitamin D? Is it low thyroid? Like that's what I'm looking at on that stress hormones, mood, and metabolism test. That's what I want to know. Then on the Candida metabolic and vitamins test, okay, what's going on here? Lower levels of potential neuros. We've got gut-based dysfunction with Candida bacterial overgrowth or C. diff. We're looking at the detox system. And then on the minerals and metals test, which is part of that starter kit, I'm looking at an imbalance between magnesium and calcium, sodium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. I'm looking at elevated levels of heavy metals. So that is why lab testing gives you the answers without guessing. I mean, there's that fun little quote, right, that says, don't guess, test. Well, that's the truth. It's a cute quote, but that's the truth. I did not know how to get well until at 19 years old, I walked into my very first alternative health practitioner's office, and I'm saying that in air quotes, didn't know how to get well. All of a sudden, this doctor pulls out the stress hormones pathway, starts showing me how cortisol gets elevated, this, and the other thing. Next thing I know, I'm walking home or walking out with a stress hormones saliva-based test. And as they say, the rest was history. Now, did I get better immediately? No, because this doctor was in the infancy of functional medicine. There wasn't a lot of sharing of ideas yet. But he set me on my path, and I started to realize that there are levels to this. And if I could rebalance the underlying root issues, not just trying to take L-Carnitine for weight loss or for energy. And by the way, it's a great nutrient, and it does help with mitochondrial cell health. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's especially if you're vegan, it can be good to take. Now, would it be my 16th supplement that I would add to someone? Sure, but I don't even give 16 supplements, right? So it's like, it's nowhere near at the top. It's just nowhere near because there's so much else that you need to be doing. And that's the daily foundational protocol, level 3. Especially if you're not well. And then it goes down to vitamin C. It goes down to so many other things. I mean, Heather, you might be using estrogen balance. You might be doing a deep sleep protocol. I mean, there's so many different things that we may be doing with Heather besides L-Carnitine. First recommendation, the labs, that's the starter kit plus the stress hormones, mood and metabolism. Second recommendation would be to follow the Fatlocity plan, which is equilibriumnutrition.com/Fatlocity. That is a full month formula. Plus it comes with the entire course, diet plans, etc. That's what I would do. No doubt about it for weight loss. So hopefully, and especially stubborn weight loss, right? So hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you so much. I'm going to be answering 6 more of our questions tomorrow on these Cabral House Calls. Thanks so much. Take care. Hope you're having a great weekend. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, the rain barrel effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rain barrel.